Welcome to From Caving In to Crushing It, the podcast for those who find themselves immersed in adversity and choose to write their story instead of having others write it for them. I'm Drew Deraney, and I'm your host. Dr. Philip Reid, so good to see you, my friend.
Man, it is awesome seeing you as well, brother. How's everything going?
Things are going well. Things are going well. Better now that I get to
So
see you, man. It's been a while. And
it
whenever
has,
I
it
have a
has,
guest
it
on,
has.
I always want to thank the individual who introduced us. And in this case, it was our special Oscar Capel introduced the two of us. So, Oscar, if you're listening or watching, thank you, sir, for introducing Phil and me. There's a reason why these kind of things happen. So, Phil, you may be wondering why I wanted you on this show. And, before we hit the record button, we did talk a little. And I often talk about how when we're young, our family tells us that life is linear. It's a straight line. If you do A, B, and C, D is going to happen. And, by the time we're 18, 90% of our belief system about the world and ourselves is already formed. So we just go about what we're taught. And it's not a malicious teaching. They want that for us. And for the most part, life is linear until it's not, right? It's linear
Hmm.
until that external circumstance, something happens that shakes us to our core. And it's all relative. Trauma is all relative. External circumstances impact people differently. But there's a time in our life where we're like, you know what? Life can be different. And I often talk about three different men: man number one, man number two, and man number three. And during even the course of a day, we might be all three of those men, depending on what happens, where our mindset or our consciousness level is. And man number one is the man who has a ton of blind spots, and he's so overwhelmed or so preoccupied with life the way he's been living, he doesn't notice anything different where he can change things. So nothing changes. He goes through life, and he's one of the regrets when he's on his deathbed, you know? But then there's
Hmm.
man number two. And man number two is the man who sees that stuff's happening, yet he's the victim, right? He's blaming everybody. Like, I can't change this. Life's doing this to me. The man I have on this show is man number three. That's you, Phil. He's the man who finally, after a time, he looks, he says, things are happening, but you know what? They don't have to be a barrier. These can be opportunities. There can be something different. This is life happening for me. I'm going to take this on as a challenge, as an opportunity to be a different person, do things differently. And you break away from that old belief system. And I know you've done that and you've gone through stuff. And we all have these defining moments in life. I'd love for you, Phil, reach back as far as you need to and grab that defining moment or defining moments that made you man number three. And you said, I'm going to do something different. And I'm going to become the man I am right now, and lead us through that and bring us to where you are now, personally and professionally, and how that consciousness of that defining moment has shaped your life.
Okay, so there's several that come to mind, but I want to thank you first, Drew, for inviting me on your show.
Mhm.
This is a high honor coming from you, and I really appreciate the opportunity, my friend. Well, so the first I could maybe place two major turning points
Mhm.
that changed my perspective on life. And the first one was when my father passed away when I was about 7 or 8 years old, right? I got that first reality of permanency,
Mhm.
right? At that age. And it was funny to me because that's when I started making some radical decisions about who I wanted to be
Mhm.
and how I wanted my life to go.
Right.
And so, I started searching, I started searching for God. I started searching for, answers like, why now? And all of those questions started coming to me. And, it was funny because as I started seeking that, and I started getting answers little by little,
Yeah.
you know, as far as, death is not the end of things. It is actually the beginning of a new life. And I, started digging into that even more. And so I started seeking out the purpose of this life. And that is the kind of, you know, pivotal turning point in kind of understanding permanency versus temperance,
Right.
right? Once you realize that this isn't permanent, your priorities shift to, okay, so what decisions do I need to make
Mhm.
now in order to make a mark in this time, in this season that I'm born? And it's funny that we weren't born in, during the time of World War One or World
Right.
War Two, which we call like the Great Generation, right? We were born now and in this time and this season, and there has to be a purpose for that. There has to be a reason for that.
Absolutely.
Skipping up into years,
Hmm.
I'd say the second major marker was my divorce,
Yeah,
which is like a death in itself, right?
it is.
And so I never expected it.
Hmm.
I thought, of course, as all of us think,
Yeah,
when you're getting married, it's going to be bliss for the rest of my
of
life.
course.
So it's just going to, I'm going to grow old and I'm going to be the old man. It's
Mhm.
with White House, picket fence, two
Yep,
dogs.
absolutely.
This is the way we're going to live.
Yep.
But to kind of like reach that conclusion and
Yeah.
having to make that major decision, and seeing how it affected my son and my family, it didn't match the kind of person I wanted to be
Hmm.
or who I saw myself as at 7 and 8,
Right.
right? During that major first change, so it brought me to a place of questioning and examining again. Who am I now?
Hmm.
Why am I here?
Right.
What is the lesson
Yep.
in this entire thing, and how do I learn,
Right.
that lesson, right? How do I become better because of it and not stay bitter? Because I went through some really dark moments. It wasn't like, okay, I got a divorce. Yay, I'm happy. Let's have a party. It was that, and you can relate to that,
Oh,
right?
yes, I can.
It
Absolutely.
it was just, it was not a celebrative. It was very more like I couldn't believe what was happening,
Yeah,
and it
exactly.
felt like a huge failure. This is this was major, major failure for me. And so after that second
Hmm.
moment, I started learning more about myself.
Mm.
I started learning more about who I am under pressure.
Right, right.
What does Phil look like without pressure, and what does Phil look like under pressure,
Yeah,
right? And those are two different
yeah,
guys.
absolutely are.
I found the guy that was not under pressure, would be lackadaisical in some ways, you know, take things for granted,
Yeah.
like, oh, I have tomorrow. I don't
Hmm.
have to really focus in on today and take advantage of today.
Right, right.
I always had tomorrow
Hmm.
with the relaxed guy.
Right.
With the guy under pressure,
Yeah.
it was, oh, this needs to be done today.
Right.
I need to be focused on the moment and not the future, not the past,
Right.
the now. And so I said, there's got to be a middle. There's got to be a middle ground.
The
It's
balance.
like,
Yes, absolutely.
right. There's the balance of, okay, how do I walk that
Yep.
line of this? And my key answer was mindset.
Okay.
The frame of mind you're in on a constant level determines where you're going to go,
Hmm.
right? And you learning from where you've been,
Right, right.
right? And I think we said this right before the program. It's really not what the world has done to you,
Hmm.
but is your effect on the world.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I say that because you can't change the world,
No.
right? You can't change people. I can't force you to become who I want you to be,
No.
but I can definitely focus on who I am as a person,
Hmm.
spiritually, mentally,
Hmm.
emotionally,
Right.
physically,
Right.
all of it. If you notice, your whole body is like a universe in itself.
Yeah, it is. It's true.
It's true. Your body has its own way of functioning with chemicals, molecules,
Hmm.
all those things in here has its own way of dealing with things, but
Right.
your emotions affect you chemically.
Right.
and your chemicals affect you emotionally.
Hmm.
It's a crossbreeding of everything you are,
Hmm.
and how you focus that in and release it into the world tells the universe and the world how to respond to you.
Right. Yeah. I think a
So
lot of
you
that
bring
too.
that definition in.
True. Well, a lot of it too
Mm-hmm,
is your level of awareness.
mm-hmm,
Because there's so many things happening subconsciously that we don't realize. But if we're aware that we have a lot of subconscious thoughts, I believe that we have about 70,000 thoughts a day on average, the human,
mm-hmm,
and we only bring about 1.4% to our conscious level. It's like 1,400, something like that,
mm-hmm,
whatever the numbers are. But the point is, if we're not aware of those thoughts that become conscious, then we miss out on something. Because,
mm-hmm,
there's always this chicken or the egg thing. What comes first, the thoughts or the emotions? I mean, I
mm-hmm,
do believe the thoughts come first. Some people say the emotions come first, but the thoughts, there's so many subconscious thoughts that stir emotion, you know?
mm-hmm,
It's not always the conscious thoughts that stir the emotion. It's that subconscious stuff, all the stuff you talked about, all the compilation of what happened in our lives. It's never out of our brain. It's in us no matter what. It's just a matter of once we're able to live in the moment, like you said,
mm-hmm,
not dwell on the past and not be afraid of the future. The more we're in the present moment, the more consciously we are aware of our thoughts and we can
mm-hmm,
impact that. And I think the awareness piece is so important, and a very low percentage, especially of men,
mm-hmm.
are aware of our
Examine that.
surroundings.
Yeah, we're
Which is
oblivious, man.
it's scary.
But and on a basic level, we would rather not think about what we think about,
True. Yeah.
and just basically live in this mode of,
It's
it's
easier.
going to get done. It's
Easier.
easier not to think about it. Just
Right.
like
Right.
that's why we zone out. I forgot who said it, but he said that we have this blank space, we have this
Yeah.
empty room that we always go to,
Yeah.
and just
Yeah.
kind of like
And women don't have that.
silence.
That's the funny thing.
No,
Women
no.
don't have that. They're like both sides of
Right.
the brain working 100% of the time. So it's funny you mention that because like if a woman asks a guy, "What are you thinking?" and we say nothing, we mean it. And they're like, "No, really." And then if we're not comfortable in our own skin, we make something up and make it worse. I'm like, really, I'm thinking about nothing. Oh God, it's funny, Phil. So so
You know,
let's take.
it's like, what I'm thinking about? I'm thinking about what you're thinking about right
Yeah, we
now.
go. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Bingo. So let's all right. So let's take the
Mhm,
death of dad, and I'm sorry that happened, especially at such a young age, and the divorce,
mhm,
and the fact that we humans go through a grieving process for both. On the other side, you're in a better place now in many ways.
mhm.
Tell us where you are now personally and about your children, and then professionally, what you're doing now as the Phil Reid of now versus before those two impactful moments.
So where I am now is I'm at a place of really peace.
Peace.
Is the only word I can really look at,
Okay.
because I know what I can control,
Hmm.
and I know what I have to change within myself
Right.
in order to make my environment better.
Hmm.
And there's this joy factor. I want to call it the joy factor
Right.
of waking up with an attitude of gratitude,
Hmm.
right? Because the energy you project is the energy that's going to come back to you,
Right.
right? So if your mind is in a place of, well, you know, I hope I have a great day today. I hope this is, if you're not expecting good things to happen,
Right.
then automatically is almost like your turnkey. The power of your dominion, the power of your authority in this
Right.
world
Yeah.
diminishes because of how you see your who's at the controls,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
If it's okay, it's just the universe. The universe is at the control, so I
Right.
don't have any control. Then everything is just going to happen to you,
Right.
right? But if you say, man, today is a great day, God, there's a scripture that says, This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it.
Right.
It's showing you how your morning perspective should be, because there are always going to be things that you could consider bad that's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And so it's really about your perspective. Even if it's something that's disappointing,
Yeah.
you don't have to frame it as a negative.
Exactly. And that's challenging for most human beings.
It
But you're
is.
right.
It
Yeah, but if we
is.
have that mindset of the silver lining in every potentially negative moment, that there's something,
Hmm.
and I tell you that takes a lot of work, Phil. That's you got to create a habit of thinking, okay, this sucks, yet what can I take out of this sucky situation that's going to help me grow? And
Hmm.
I try to tell my kids that we don't win and lose, we win and learn. And at a
Ooh, I love.
young age, it's
Ooh,
hard to
that's good.
see
Yeah.
that.
Hmm.
But if you don't see things as losing or a failure, you mentioned the word failure
Right.
earlier.
Hmm. Hmm.
These are lessons that we can learn to not repeat what we may have done to create the circumstance we're in. Because truthfully, and I never really thought about this or believed it, but Phil, you and I, we made decisions in our life that have led us to where we are now.
Right
We
on.
did, whether they were subconscious decisions or conscious decisions or without all the information we needed, we made bad decisions, good decisions, whatever.
Hmm.
We did to us what where we are right now.
Hmm.
And it was very challenging for me to believe that because I'm not in the situation I want to be in. Now for you, and God bless, you're remarried and you're happy.
Hmm.
Can you tell us, for we men who are divorced and not haven't found that next person, how did love happen the second time around for you?
Okay. What I'm going to say is
Your
going to
version,
be
and then later on I'll meet your
right.
wife and I'll have her version. But go ahead.
Okay. Okay. So I would tell you this way. I gave up the notion of perfection.
Okay.
I realized that no matter what the issue, no matter what the situation,
Yeah.
it's a one human being connecting deeply with another human being.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there are so many factors and
Yeah.
layers. Everything, I mean, everything wasn't for us, our bonding together,
Mhm.
our oneness
Yeah.
did not come at without sacrifice
Of course. Right.
and without risk,
Hmm.
or without saying, you know, like thoughts, taking thoughts captive,
Yeah.
right?
Right. Right.
You've got to learn, everything isn't your thoughts.
True.
Some thoughts are really external,
Hmm.
trying to come in
Hmm.
and influence your
Hmm.
thoughts, right? And once
Absolutely.
it becomes a part of your mindset and your
Yeah.
thinking,
Yeah.
that's when it starts causing damage.
Absolutely.
You've got to just basically say, all right, this thought does not align with what I want. So therefore, you have to be like a police officer. I'm going to take this thought. I'm going to lock it up. I'm going to put it in mental prison,
Yep.
and it will not come out forever. It will be there forever, right?
Yep.
And I think, like you said, this is not something. It, I would say the premise of this is where I learned to separate, permanency
Hmm.
from temporary,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
What do I want to live in permanently,
Right.
and what do I want to live in temporarily,
I love that. Right. I love that.
right? And being able to separate it, like
Yeah.
the moments you have with your family
Hmm.
is permanency,
Hmm.
in the sense of it becomes a memory.
Yeah.
Every moment you have, you can turn it into a beautiful, wonderful memory,
True. Absolutely.
and so even the stuff that is not permanent,
Hmm.
your electric bill isn't permanent.
Hmm.
The bills aren't really permanent. They're just things that you have to do on a regular basis, but it really isn't. If you lose one thing, you go grab another thing.
Yeah.
It's not it doesn't affect your life like in permanent ways.
Exactly.
And so sometimes we contaminate our minds with the temporary,
Yes.
and we have that become permanent. Like
No,
you
it's true.
treat you treat your loved ones based on the temporary thing.
Hmm.
Oh my goodness, and I'm short of money today, or I'm short of money this month, or I'm short of money this week. And then the person you love comes into that mental space,
Mm.
and your whole right, your
Yeah.
entire emotions are wrapped around it. You've thought about it as guys.
Hmm.
We percolate it so much and
That's
so
true.
deeply
Yep.
that it controls our whole atmosphere,
Yeah.
to where we start responding to everybody based on the mission that we weren't able to accomplish.
Absolutely. No, it's so true.
Right?
It's so true. So we got to
You
reframe.
know?
We got to reframe that, man. So,
Yeah.
Phil, what are you doing now professionally? Now, I have a question for you. Your background, virtual or
Mhm.
real?
Virtual. This is my dream
That's your
projection.
dream. I love that.
One day, you and I are going to sit in this studio,
We are.
and we're going to talk about when it was virtual.
Yep, we will.
And
We will
you're going to be
absolutely
like,
will.
hey, Phil, I remember you had this. I'm like,
Uh-huh.
yeah, me too.
We remember on September 16, 2024, it was virtual and it's
It
going.
was virtual.
I know
Yep,
it's going to be real. So
absolutely.
tell me, since you want a studio like that, what are you doing now uh to get to that virtual?
Okay, so now the Phoenix National Network is an international network,
Hmm.
right? And it didn't become that um, it didn't become that by intention per se.
Okay.
We started just putting out. I just focused in on what the message was,
Hmm.
which is we want to bring a message of hope. We want to cultivate people's minds, educate them,
Hmm.
and also bring awareness to all the different things they can do
Hmm.
with their life, and options that they have. And so just by pursuing those three basic things,
Yeah.
we developed over time. We started connecting, like I started connecting with you,
Yeah.
Oscar, Richard and
Right.
Kim, and all these different awesome people started coming into the circle
Yeah.
and really improving it, to where now we're launching into something more aggressive, in the sense of being a business solutions group for entrepreneurs,
Beautiful.
right?
Love it. Yeah.
For people who want to, you know that there are different levels.
Hmm.
Not everybody can get like an angel investor like right
Right.
away, or you can getting finances just kind of flowing in, and
Right.
you become this $1 million company overnight.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need to connect with the right people,
Yeah.
and have the right support in order to make it there.
Yeah.
And that's what we've become.
Love it.
We've gone from just being a media podcasting environment, and we're morphing. I feel the metamorphosis
Right.
happening, to where us collaborating have become, okay, let's be a business solution,
Beautiful. Love it.
for entrepreneurs, to where they can make an income.
Yeah.
They can cultivate their dream.
Yeah.
They can become, more involved in their pursuits.
Yeah.
And eventually, it's just going to be where we start making dreams come true, like Disney. Like,
There you go. There you go.
oh yeah.
Yeah, it's more tangible what you're doing though, because
Mm,
entrepreneurs need business solutions that are coming from people we trust. How many entrepreneurs out there start out and don't have that community and the network of trust, right? And we
mhm.
look for people and we find these scam artists and we get pummeled, and whether it's financially or abused, with our business. And it does take connection with good human beings and it takes patience, right? And you got to know
Absolutely.
who you are and feel comfortable in your own skin and love yourself in order to
Mhm,
start attracting those people who want to bring you up and not knock you down. And I think what you're
mhm,
doing, you're providing an opportunity for entrepreneurs to go to one place where they trust Dr. Phil Reid to surround himself with trustworthy individuals who have business solutions that apply to entrepreneurs. So we meet Phil and then we meet his team and then we become part of that team and a community. And that what that does, it reduces the overwhelm an entrepreneur has of how do I
mhm.
do this? How do I do that? How do I do that? Oh shoot, I can ask Phil. and Phil will introduce me to
Right.
Kevin or to Oscar or to Richard
Hmm.
or Whitney, that kind of thing. And I think what
Yeah.
you're building is wonderful, Phil. And I'm looking forward to see this grow. And I'm looking forward to sitting in that studio when it's real and not virtual.
You make me smile when you say
I
that.
love it. So I know by now the audience has
Mhm.
captured the essence of Dr. Philip Reid, and they're going to want to get in touch with you, Phil. So, folks, and I suggest you do, even if it's just a conversation to get to know the man, reach out to him. The website is PNN for Phoenix National Network, PNNstationplus.com, or you may text him at 732-698-8225. Phil's a great man just to get to know, even if it's a casual conversation. Okay, so I have two final questions for you, sir.
Mhm.
The first one is I want to give you the opportunity of sitting down with that 7 to 10-year-old young Phil, where we had one of your defining moments, and you want to sit down and give him advice about life, Phil. What would you tell him?
It's going to be okay. Um, you know, everything may not work out how you may picture it,
Mhm.
but all things work together for good to them who love the Lord, you know.
Love that. Love that.
And you just to include love in his life,
Mhm.
no matter what.
That's great.
Never succumb to bitterness, never succumb to shame or bitterness.
Right. Right. Actually, it's a very good point. You can change one letter, bitter to better, right? Get rid of that I in bitter and turn into an E
Make it
for better.
better.
Make it
Yeah,
better, man, with love.
absolutely.
I love that. All right. So switching hats. Now you're sitting down with young Phil, the young businessman, young entrepreneur, and knowing what you know now, what type of business information or advice would you provide him?
Partner with the right people,
Yeah.
be influenced by the right people,
Yeah.
find a mentor for every area
Yeah.
that he wants to be successful.
Love that.
And finally, don't quit.
Don't quit.
Don't quit.
Love it.
Quitting is a period, and you need a comma
Comma.
in order to
Yeah.
continue.
Keep
Mm-hmm.
going. I love that.
Keep going.
Well, Phil, great advice. We know that our younger self wouldn't listen to us, but somebody out there is going to listen to you, and we're going to hear about it. We're going to hear about it. That's right. That's right.
Yeah, yeah,
Thank you
absolutely.
again for coming on. Thank you for coming into my life and for being my friend. I look forward to us growing as human beings together. This is not a one and done conversation, and I wish you all the best, my friend.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Take care, everybody. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe and give us a review to help others find it. I'd like you to answer this question. Are you living the life you want to live, or are you living the life others want you to live? I'd like you to think about that for a second, because I strongly suggest you live the life you want to live. If you want to learn more about what I stand for and my services and how I'm able to help many men get out of their own way, please go to my website at www.profitcompassion.com. Feel free to also email me at drew@profitcompassion.com. I'd love to have a conversation with you. Take care of yourself and choose to write your own story instead of letting others write it for you.